Let me ask you something strange. When was the last time a hug changed the way a woman felt about you? Not in a romantic movie moment kind of way. I mean a moment so quiet, so present, that something actually shifted between you two. Where she leaned in just a little longer than expected, where she didn't pull away first. Most men have never experienced that, and the reason isn't what they think. They assume touch is touch. That a hug is just a hug, a social formality, a hello, a goodbye, something you do because the moment calls for it. They execute it, they get it over with, they move on. And the woman they just held? She felt almost nothing, or worse, she felt something she couldn't name, something slightly off. A discomfort she'd never say out loud. Here's what I want you to sit with for a moment. Physical touch is one of the most psychologically complex forms of communication we have as human beings. And most men approach it like they're filling out a form. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 3 psychological principles that completely change how a woman experiences a hug with you. These aren't tricks, they're not tactics you deploy. They're understandings about how her nervous system works, how emotional safety operates, and what she's actually registering in those 2 or 3 seconds of contact. And there's one of these 3 principles, the third one, that almost no one talks about. But once you understand it, you'll see why some men leave a lasting impression from something as simple as a greeting. Stay with me. I want to be clear about what this video is and what it isn't. This isn't a tutorial on how to hug someone properly, like a checklist you memorize before walking into a room. It's also not a seduction technique, and I'm going to ask you to set aside that mindset completely if it crept in when you read the title. What this is a conversation about emotional psychology and nonverbal communication. Specifically, how the way you initiate, execute, and close physical contact communicates something about you on a level far below words, and how most men are unknowingly sending signals they never intended to send. I've spent years studying human behavior, emotional dynamics, and the psychology of connection. And one of the most consistent patterns I've seen is this. Men who struggle with creating genuine emotional intimacy are often excellent at the logical side of things. They know what to say, they've read the books, they've watched the videos, but they lose something in the transfer somewhere between their mind and their body. The signal gets garbled. Physical presence is where the unconscious tells the truth. And the hug, simple as it seems, is one of the most honest moments between 2 people. So by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly what's happening beneath the surface of that moment. You'll understand why certain things create closeness and why others quietly erode it. And you'll understand yourself a little better in the process. That last part matters more than you might think right now. Let's talk about what most men actually do. Picture the moment. You see her, there's a natural opening for a hug, and you go in. What happens in your body in that split second? For a lot of men, there's a faint but real anxiety. A question running just beneath consciousness. Is this okay? Am I doing this right? How long do I hold? Should I say something? And because that question is running, the hug itself becomes slightly mechanical. Arms go up, contact is made, maybe a pat on the back, and then a quick release because the discomfort of the uncertainty wants it to be over. She felt all of that. Not consciously. She probably couldn't tell you exactly what was off. But her nervous system is extraordinarily well calibrated for safety and emotional truth, far more so than she gives herself credit for. And what she registered in that moment wasn't a warm greeting. It was a man who was slightly in his head, slightly absent, going through emotion, the pat on the back. Let's talk about that for a second, because it's one of the most telling unconscious behaviors in this whole conversation. The pat, the 2 or 3 rhythmic taps people do mid-hug, is almost universally a signal to end the contact. It's a socially coded way of saying we're done here. It's what you do when you hug someone you're not fully comfortable with. A distant relative, a work colleague where the hug was a little awkward to begin with. Most men don't realize they're doing it. They think it reads as warm. It doesn't. It reads as a man who wants out. And then there's the lean. The hug where the feet stay planted, the torso angles in, but the rest of the body maintains maximum distance. It looks like someone trying to hug a live electrical wire. She doesn't feel held. She feels tolerated. Or the other extreme, the man who holds too long, past the natural close of the moment, who hasn't read that she's already begun to pull back. And now the hug has gone from warm to vaguely uncomfortable, and she's quietly cataloging it in a part of her mind she'll return to later. None of these men are bad people. They're just unconscious. They're doing what they've always done, which is treating touch as a transaction rather than a moment of actual presence. Here's the deeper problem. You can have excellent conversation skills, genuine confidence, and real interest in a woman and still create emotional distance through touch. Because touch bypasses all of that. It lands differently. It speaks to a part of her that words don't reach. And if what it says is, "I'm not quite here," that signal lingers. So let's go deeper. Trigger 1. The approach communicates before contact. Here's something most people have never stopped to think about. The hug begins before you touch. It begins the moment you move toward her. It begins in the quality of your eye contact as you close the distance. It begins in the pace of your approach, whether you're rushing slightly, as if to get it done, or whether you're moving at your own pace, unhurried, like a man who's fully comfortable in his own body. She is reading all of this. There's a concept in psychology called neuroception, a term developed by researcher Stephen Porges as part of his polyvagal theory. Neuroception describes the nervous system's unconscious surveillance of the environment for cues of safety or danger. It's happening all the time, beneath awareness. Her body is constantly asking, "Is this safe? Is this person safe?" And your approach before a single word is spoken, before physical contact is made, is feeding her nervous system data. A man who rushes slightly, who doesn't hold eye contact, whose body language is slightly contracted, is someone her nervous system quietly notes. Not as dangerous, just as someone slightly unresolved, someone whose energy doesn't quite have a center. A man who moves at his own pace, who holds gentle but grounded eye contact, who takes up space without apology, communicates something entirely different. Her nervous system exhales a little. Something settles. This is not about performing confidence. This is about actually being settled in yourself in that moment. That's a crucial distinction, and I want you to hold it. Performance is detectable. Her body catches it. What she responds to is genuineness, a man who is actually present, actually unhurried, actually comfortable with the moment being whatever it is. So the first thing to stop doing is treating the approach as a preamble to the hug. The approach is the hug. It's where the emotional tone is set. Slow down. Make soft, real eye contact as you move toward her. Let there be a small smile, not a performance of warmth, but an actual expression of it. Let the space between you close at your own pace. That's it. That's the whole thing. But doing that genuinely, that requires something most men haven't yet cultivated. It requires that your baseline state is one of settledness rather than low-level alertness. We'll come back to that. Trigger 2. Presence is physical, not just mental. Here's the second principle, and it's the one that separates men who are good at talking to women from men who actually create deep emotional impressions. You can be mentally present in a conversation and physically absent in a moment of touch. These are different things, and she feels the difference. When you hug someone, there's a neurological event happening for both of you. Physical touch, particularly full, warm, unhurried contact, triggers the release of oxytocin. You've probably heard this called the bonding hormone. But what's less often talked about is how sensitive this process is to the quality of the touch itself. Oxytocin release is facilitated by touch that is warm, sustained, and this is key without agenda. Touch that is anxious, hurried, or tinged with self-consciousness produces a much more muted response. The body knows. The nervous system knows. So here's what physical presence during a hug actually means in practice. It means your arms make full, real contact, not barely there contact, like you're trying not to wrinkle her shirt. It means your weight settles slightly, rather than remaining coiled and ready to pull back. It means there's a moment, just a brief moment, where you're genuinely there, not halfway to the next thing you're going to say. It means you're not managing the hug. You're in it. One of the most common unconscious behaviors men do in a hug is think about what happens next. While the hug is still happening, they're already moving toward, okay, what do I say when we separate? And so they've left. Physically still present, but mentally already 2 seconds ahead. She registers this as a kind of absence. It's subtle, but it's real. The hug closes, and there's a slight hollowness to it, like something was almost there but didn't quite arrive. The opposite of this is what happens when a man is genuinely in the moment of contact, not thinking about what's next, not monitoring how the hug is going, just there, breathing, settled, present in his body. That kind of presence is rare, and it is felt deeply. There's something else worth naming here. The close of the hug matters as much as anything else. Most men end a hug by contracting, shoulders pull in, arms drop, they lean back. The body language of, okay, we're done, and that's fine. But there's another way to close a hug, by staying soft and open as you separate, eyes that return to hers naturally. An expression that says the warmth of that moment didn't evaporate the second contact ended. That close, that soft, unhurried return to looking at her communicates something words rarely can. It says, I didn't need that moment to be anything other than what it was, and it was enough. That lands differently. Remember it. Trigger 3. What she's actually looking for and almost never finds. This is the one. I've been building toward this the whole time, and I want you to really sit with it. Here's the core truth underneath everything we've been talking about. She is not looking for a man who is good at hugging. She is looking for a man who is good at being himself. This seems simple, almost too simple, but follow me here. Follow me. Every behavior we've talked about, the anxious approach, the pat on the back, the lean without contact, the mental absence during the hug itself, every single one of these things traces back to the same root. A man who is slightly self-monitoring. A man who is in some low-level way performing rather than simply being. And she feels this not because she's perceptive and not because she's critical. She feels it because her nervous system was built to detect authenticity, because genuine safety, emotional safety, the foundation of real connection and real attraction requires a person who is actually there, not curated, not managed. There. The third trigger isn't a technique, it's a state. It's what happens when a man has done enough internal work, enough honest self-reflection, enough practice at being present in his own life that he doesn't need any given moment to go a certain way. He's not attached to the hug feeling romantic. He's not hoping it will change something between them. He's not trying to communicate anything beyond genuine warmth. He's just greeting someone he cares about. When you're in that state, the hug takes care of itself. The approach is natural. The contact is full and real. The close is soft and unhurried, not because you executed the right steps, but because none of those things required effort. They emerged from who you actually were in that moment. This is why two men can do the exact same physical sequence, same approach, same duration, same type of contact, and she walks away from one feeling something real and the other feeling nothing. It's not what they did, it's who they were when they did it. And here's the uncomfortable part. You cannot fake this. You can learn the external signals. You can slow down your approach, soften your eyes, keep your arms from doing the awkward pat. All of that is good and useful. But underneath all of it, she's still reading the truth of who you are in that moment. So the real work, the work that most men avoid, because it's slower and less satisfying than watching a video like this, is the inner work. It's learning to be at home in your own body. Learning to meet moments without needing to manage them. Learning that your value, your presence, your worth, none of that is being evaluated in a hug. And the moment you stop experiencing it as an evaluation, something shifts. She feels that shift. Here's a way to think about it. Emotional safety for a woman is created not by a man who is trying to make her feel safe, but by a man who is so genuinely grounded in himself that safety is simply the byproduct of being near him. That's the man she leans into. That's the man she doesn't pull away from first. Not because he did something, because he was something. So what does this look like in real life? Not as a technique, but as a genuine orientation going into a moment. When you see her and you sense that a hug is natural, just notice what's happening inside you. Are you slightly in your head? Is there a small question running? Should I? How long? What happens next? If there is, you don't need to fight it. Just notice it. Naming something is often enough to take its power down a notch. Take one breath. Not dramatically, you're not meditating in the middle of a social interaction. just a quiet settling of your own body before you move. Move toward her at your own pace, not rushed, not performing casualness, just real. When you reach her, let your arms make real contact, not cautious, not performative, real, like you've actually decided to be there. Stay in the hug for a beat longer than the anxiety wants you to. Not longer than what's natural, but often the first impulse to pull away is anxiety, not natural timing. Give the moment a chance to actually land. When you separate, let your eyes come back to hers naturally, soft, unhurried, not searching for a reaction, just returning. And then let it be what it was. Don't analyze it. Don't reach for words to fill the moment immediately after. Just let the warmth of it exist without needing to add to it. That's it. That's the whole thing. And I know some of you are reading that and thinking that seems too subtle to matter, but this is exactly what I meant earlier about the gap between logical behavior and emotional impact. Logically, a hug is brief, 2 or 3 seconds. It doesn't seem like a lot of information could transfer. But emotionally, her body just ran you through an extraordinarily sophisticated scan. And what came back was, he was here. He was actually here. That's rare. And rare things are remembered. I want to address something before we close, because I think it would be incomplete not to. Some of what I described in the third trigger, that state of genuine settledness, of being fully in a moment without needing it to go a certain way, this isn't something you can manufacture from the outside in. You can practice the external behaviors. They matter. But eventually, the external practice has to be paired with actual internal development. For a lot of men, the low-level anxiety they feel around women, and specifically around touch, is connected to something deeper than just social awkwardness. It's often about unresolved questions around worth, around rejection, around whether they're enough. And these questions show up in a hug. They show up in the pat on the back. They show up in the lean that doesn't fully commit. They show up in the mental absence mid-contact because the whole moment feels like an evaluation. This is worth sitting with, honestly, not to judge yourself for it, just to see it clearly, because the men who become genuinely magnetic, not in a manipulative sense, but in the sense that people simply feel good around them, have almost always done real work to answer those questions for themselves, not to perform confidence, but to actually understand their own value, independent of any given moment going their way. That internal shift changes everything on the surface, including something as simple as how they hold someone. If you found this useful, there's a guide I've put together that goes deeper into the specific psychological frameworks we touched on today, particularly around emotional presence, nervous system regulation, and the inner dynamics that show up in how we relate to women. It's not a dating guide. It's not a set of techniques to use. It's more of a quiet, honest map for men who are genuinely interested in developing the kind of internal settledness that makes all of this natural rather than effortful. You'll find it linked below, and you can read it in your own time. No pressure. It's there if the conversation we've been having today resonates. Let me leave you with this. Every moment of physical contact, and the hug is one of the most honest of them all, is a kind of transparency. It reveals the truth of who you are in that moment, your presence or your absence, your settledness or your anxiety, your willingness to be there, or your impulse to already be somewhere else. Most men are trying to learn the right moves, and some of the moves do matter, we covered them. But the deepest truth is that attraction, connection, desire, all of it, follows emotional experience. And emotional experience is created not by what you do, but by what you actually are when you do it. A man who is genuinely present in his own life, in his body, in his sense of worth, in his comfort with whatever a moment holds, that man doesn't need to think about how to hug someone. It just happens, and she feels it. That's the goal, not a technique, a way of being, and the path to that is honest, patient, unglamorous work on yourself. No shortcut, but it's real, and it's available to you. If something in this video landed for you, I'd genuinely love to know which part. Drop it in the comments below, not for the algorithm, but because the specific thing that landed is almost always the thing most worth exploring. And if you want more conversations like this one patient, psychology grounded, honest, consider subscribing. No hype. Just this kind of work consistently. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.